Let's talk about education. You've already mentioned the impact of your education in Kenya, and you write about it in the book, and you've mentioned it at the beginning of our discussion. Talk more about it, because it's so important. Education is really critical in terms of impacting a person's life, whether be it young women or young men. And it's one of the themes that you develop. Say a bit more about how it is very critical to have an education and educational opportunities.
Well, I would first start by pointing out that education means different things to different people. There are different educations. When I compare tribal Islamic education to Western education, even though within those education systems there are differences and there are similarities between the two, I have a feeling that when I'm talking to Westerners, they're assuming, when they use the word education, at all times they're assuming Western education. For instance, it was Western and alien to my mother and my grandmother to be educated in science, in geography, in history, in logic, in physics, go on, just the curriculum as you get it in school. And often I would hear my parents discuss with one another, send my children to school. My father would say to my mother, keep them in school. And my mother would say, but then they will get detached from our clan and from our religion, and she would try to educate us in something else. So Westerners assume when they say education, what they really mean is Western education. And non-Westerners know that. And it's the response to that. And non-Westerners sometimes encourage their children to get Western education, and they do that consciously. And some of them are able to give them a bit of their old traditional identity that doesn't interfere with that Western curriculum. Some of them reject it altogether. My mother rejected it altogether, deep in her heart. She told my father, if you send your daughters to school and you keep them in school, they're going to talk back to you. They're going to be rebellious. They're going to do things that you don't want them to do. And she was completely right. Education, Western education, made me rebellious, made me talk back, made me run away, made me lead my own life. So it's very important for us when we talk about education to identify which type of education and which type of education do we encourage. And the education system that I've come to encourage is that Western form of education.
It's interesting the roles played by your parents, because most cases, but not always, you will have mothers who want to see their daughters educated fully, and to be able to advance themselves and have vocational opportunities and make choices for themselves. And at times we've witnessed in certain societies where usually the father hasn't always been that forthcoming. But you are mentioning that in your case, your father was encouraging an educational path.
A Western education.
A Western educational path. But your mother was concerned about what that would do.
She was concerned, and her concern was, if you educate your children Western style, they'll become like Westerners and move away from our traditions and from our religion. And she was right in that. Now, not all Muslim women are like my mother. Not all Muslim families are like my family. Some of them somehow find a reconciliation between giving their children a Western education and at the same time keeping them within the clan loyalties and within the Islamic religious loyalties. That is a small group. What I've noticed, especially when it comes to the big question in Europe of assimilating Muslim minorities into Dutch society, French society, British society, where the leadership of these societies are talking about Western education, that reconciliation is not something that you should be taken for granted. It is a very difficult transition that many immigrants either do not know how to go about it, or even if they know how to go about it, reject Western education and somehow just cannot find a balance between the two. And that is what I find interesting. And I think my life and the story of my life illustrates those transitional differences. And in Nomad, I try to explain that because individuals are very different, I made the transition. My sister almost made it and then didn't. My brother, who was really very good in school, when we were in Somalia, in Saudi Arabia, in Ethiopia, in Kenya, he would get the admiration of his teachers and everyone around him in how he performed academically. That is in the Western education that he was getting. But somehow he didn't make it. As he grew older and matured, he got lost in that hiatus, in that gap between the two cultures. I come across other people who have made it. I mean, in Washington alone, I meet many people from the Muslim world who have made it and are stars. I mean, Fuad Ajami, a man I admire a lot. Farid Zakaria. There are some very famous names in the United States who did make that transition. I only tell in Nomad my story about how I think that I made it, but also why I think it is difficult for the mainstream to cross that bridge.
You also talk about in the book not only the importance of Western education, but you also talk about this concept of integration and transition, and three elements that you identify as being very important. You talk about responsibility, duty, and critical thinking. Talk a bit about that. Why is that very instructive for others who may be pursuing a nomadic life and can look to your example in terms of the kinds of transitions that you have made?
When I came to the West, I realized that words such as responsibility, where I come from, it is responsibility to the clan, responsibility to God, responsibility to the group and to the family. In the West, it was ingrained responsibility in yourself as an individual. You were brought up, at least by most Western families, that seemed to be the general idea. You as an individual find your own path in life, and responsibility to others means not bringing them harm. Where I come from, responsibility means not giving up on the habits and rituals and convictions that the clan gives to you and passing them on to the next generation. Duty means duty to your parents. As a child, you are almost an insurance policy for your parents, because when they grow old, you take care of them. When I was in Holland, and we talked about, I first learned the word insurance. It meant that you made your own money and you saved it, and you took care of your old age, and your parents didn't depend on you. They depended on themselves. You pay taxes, they save pensions, etc., that kind of system. But to be financially responsible in that way, you have to become literate in the modern way of going about money. And sometimes it involved shedding your duties and your responsibilities and your sense of guilt toward your parents, who, like one of the cousins that I discuss in the book, every time he makes a penny, a dollar, he sends 3/4 of it to his father. And his father uses that money to marry more wives, to have more children, because that, according to his father, that's how wealth is defined. And I worry about my poor cousin, because I think he's not saving any money. He has no pensions. He's worked all this time in his life, and he's going to depend on welfare. And many, many Europeans with whom I have had discussions about how to eliminate or at least reduce poverty among immigrants somehow overlook this mechanism and look for it in other factors, such as the discrimination of society against Muslim immigrants. Muslims feel persecuted and discriminated against. But I think these are external factors. The more internal factors, the decisions that we make on a day-to-day life and what inspires them, I think that's what we need to talk about. And that is the message of Nomad, and not only regarding money, but also regarding aggression, regarding sexuality. and especially sexuality, because that is important in the position of women, in improving the position of women. And if the position of women is improved, I think a great deal of poverty will be relieved, not only for immigrants in Europe and America, but for all poor people worldwide.